5 o'clock, so we're going to call the meeting to order, and the first item up is approval of the agenda. Does anything need to be changed, or are we good?
No, I think it's good.
You don't really know, but you think so.
We can pull it up here.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't have a problem.
Okay. So, what's the board's pleasure on the agenda?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Got an agenda. Minutes, approval of the board minutes, and let me see. I think I'm just looking at, it's 3 sets and 4 sets. And once again, I'm sure everybody's looked over those.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second on the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I want to
Anybody
stay
opposed?
myself on November the 2nd.
November the 2nd. Cindy, make a note of that. And that'll carry us into our no action, and we're going to go straight over to Mr. Hudson for capital update. Now, I see several things attached. You'll just have to...
No action or action? Yeah, it should be
No,
under
it says
action.
no action.
No action.
Let me look, I haven't scrolled down to the action portion. If you have an action item, I can move it over there later, but it says no action right now.
It's supposed to be under action, 3 items.
Okay, I see some things attached.
We want to wait for action, or?
Go ahead and go over them. I can hold them over, I guess, can't we, Don? We can add them to it.
Yes.
And that way you won't even, well,
Well,
you won't have to.
one of the attachments is our regular spreadsheet, just shows where we're at
Right,
on
I see
each
that.
project.
Okay.
And the information that is stated on there is what I'm getting ready to ask for approval on, or what y'all would like to do.
What one is that, Stan?
Okay, hold on.
It would be, it's titled, Update 2017 Capital Projects, dated 11/6/17.
Yeah.
It says action requesting approval. There's 3 items that we received bids on. The first one was the Southside High School gym hall replacement. The project was budgeted $7,000, and when our bids were opened, the low bidder was Tyndall's Home Improvement in the amount of $7,500. This project is $500 over our budget. Let me go and read the other ones, and then y'all make a decision.
Yeah,
Because they're all 3 over. The HVAC in Building 1, that's here, and that's one of our upgrades. The project was budgeted $5,000, and the low bid was Advanced Air Solutions of Washington in the amount of $5,817.42. This project is $817.42 over budget.
Okay.
The third one is HVAC replacement and plant operations and IT. It feeds all the way across the building. The project was budgeted $5,000. The bids were open, and it was Advanced Air Solution of Washington in the amount of $6,539.68. This is $1,539.68 over our budget.
Why do you think that was? Was it just because at the time you put it in the budget, things have
Well,
changed?
yes,
a lot
ma'am,
since
because
then?
we use our local people to get our bids, and we put the bids in. We ask them what a 5-ton replacement on a split system would be. And the only thing that I can really say about that one, we found out after we did the budget, there was no return from the other side of the building. So we did add a return, 85-foot duct for the return, because that building had been hodgepodge together and added, and all the way over where the IT fellas are, they didn't have a return. They had a supply, but didn't have any return. So we always had a problem with them being super cold and us not being, so they were getting all the cold air and no return from it. So that would help balance the system. So that was probably an additional add, pretty close to that amount.
So we're looking at about $2,900 extra for those 3 projects.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to open
And
any of those
if
files?
if I may note, we do have, with $68,340 in our save from other projects. So depends on where y'all want to pull it from or what y'all's decision.
Carried over from last year.
Carried over from our previous
How
project
much
from
was
last
it
year.
saying?
$68,000.
$340.
$340.
Okay. So we're good to cover a few $100 here or there. Okay. How about if I just carry this over to 6.3 and I can just take a vote when I get down there? If somebody give me a motion to amend it to add it to 6.3?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to add these 3 items at 6.3 under action. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. That way, whether you're here or
Bring it
not
up.
at that
Yes, sir.
point, I've written down exactly what you got here, and I'll take care of it when we get it over there.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Maybe now I got to scroll back up though. Mr. Mark Dawn, I believe, wants to talk to us about a FEMA update.
Yes, sir. Just want to happily report that a year and a month after Hurricane Matthew,
that we have received 2 checks from FEMA. One check for $8,024.70. That would cover the cost of the extra pay for those folks that work shelters, fuel, and other missing items. And then a check for $5,000, which will cover the repairs at the classroom at Northside High School. And we're working on the bids to put that out as we speak. There was some tile damage, if you remember, some water damage. So we'll now be able to repair those. But we can finally put that matter to rest. So just want the board to be aware.
Eventually it does happen.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Mark?
I don't have a question for Mark, but
comment?
we did discuss, maybe in the future, are we going to, Dr. Phipps, say
Yes.
something to?
I'm going to add that in as a standing line item on the budget. And when it's not used, we would carry it over each year, and we'd have the
Okay,
money built in.
good.
Are we talking about the same thing? I
I
think
think so.
Yeah.
Where we're absorbing the cost and the, yeah.
But go ahead, if you think it's different, say it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just glad that the congregation is agreeing with you.
We were thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'm glad we're all on the same hymn, sing the same song.
Okay, anything else about that? Okay, if not, policy revisions, Dr. Phillips?
These are for first reading, and there are 2 different attachments that you'll have. One is the legislative policy update set 1 for the fall of 2017. And it's like the table that you normally see that has the policy number, the title, the description of the update, any legal authority, and the notes that are there. What I would highlight here is that there are a couple of these policies that we may pull before we actually request permission, one of those being the policy that deals with teacher contracts, because we have some work that we're dealing with there. Another one is a policy that comes into play if you have a restart school, and we don't have any restart schools, so I'm trying to determine if we want to keep this in place in case we were to have a restart school later, or it will be policy 2400 that may not impact us. The other is policy 2670. It's a new state requirement that is mandating that we have what's called a business advisory council put together. We actually have to make initial appointments to members for this council, beginning terms starting in January of 2018. And if you read the body of that policy, we already have a committee that meets once a month in our county. We call it the Business and Innovation Council or something like that. I'm working with the chairperson of that council to see if they would let this committee operate so that we don't have to pull the same people for 2 completely separate committees. So I'll have that information back to you after we're ready to look at it for the second go-around. And then the other is just a list of legal references that you have, and all of the legal reference changes there are just changes because they reflect things that have happened legislatively or otherwise that have legal references that are footnotes that connect the policies together. So we're not asking for any action tonight, but just wanted you to be aware of those.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I do want to step back to the FEMA update, and it's really not the FEMA update, but ask Stan and maybe Dr. Phipps both. I noticed at one of the county commissioners meetings the other night, they were talking about fixing the generator at Northside. Is that in progress? I know they were looking at bringing in a mechanic to do the repairs.
I think the solution actually turned out to be a lot better than what they were afraid of, and I'm sure Stan can give you details.
Piston ring machine here in Washington did fix it. It was the water pump. The back of the water pump rusted out and dumped all the water into the oil. But it has been put up, it's in service, it's in line, ready to go. It was as of last Friday.
Good.
We put it back in service last Friday.
Which means that Northside then will be able to be used as shelter again.
That sounds good.
Now, is that being handled through the county
Yes.
as their maintenance?
And I don't know if they did that through emergency management or the county commissioners, but we didn't, they took care of that work. We weren't involved in that.
They did set up, through the county, set up a PO through them to fix it no matter what. You know, if it was cost feasible, I think it was $29,000 or $30,000 they allotted to spend on it. But I don't know what true bill was, but it was water pump and labor, and then they had to flush the system, get all the old oil out, the cankered oil, and put new oil and just cool it, and they put an anti-corrosion additive into it, so maybe in the future we won't have any problems.
So it has been down for a period of time.
Yes, sir, it's been down
For a right good while.
pretty close to a year.
Yeah.
For some of you all that's been around a while too, if I'm not mistaken, that generator actually was a gift to the school system through Title and Electric. And, you know, it was more or less for that purpose, for a shelter down there. I'm glad to see that the county is putting some money into it and get it up and running, but it was a nice gift at the time too, and it was supposed to be so the school could use it in case something was to happen during a regular school day, they could have it. So, That's been a while, hasn't
Yeah, been a while, but you're right.
it? Yeah. Okay. Well, give a little history lesson.
Yeah, you're right.
We need it every now and then. At least we didn't have to pay for it.
No, we didn't have to pay for it. We
Well,
probably couldn't afford it.
If you're a taxpayer, you had to pay for it, but
Exactly,
but not through the school's budget.
Right, right.
Okay, anything else there, Butch? Do you have any other comments, Butch?
No,
Oh,
thank you, yes.
Okay. I think then I'm at enrollment update. Don.
I wanted to wait until we had official numbers from the state, and the impact of us budget-wise, we don't know what the final dollar figure would be, but kind of jumping out to the bottom of the little attachment that I've included there, if you take a look at our Day 10 enrollment, and we're well past Day 10, but we look at our funding is based on the best of two when you look at Day 20 figures for the first 20 days and the second 20 days. But on Day 10, this year we were at 6,594 students. Last year, at the same time, 6,780 students. That does not include pre-K, by the way. It's a reduction of 186 students, a significant reduction. I wanted to share a little bit of information. When you look at charter schools, private schools, and home schools, we have 9 charter schools that are listed on the state that impact Beaufort County, that have served Beaufort County in the past. We have 2 this year that don't have any Beaufort County students. We have 1 that has 3, 1 that has 1, and 1 that has 6. But there are a total of 433 students from our county that are in charter schools. Private schools, there were 3 that are listed in Beaufort County for the total of 380 students from Beaufort County. I don't have the numbers of students from Beaufort County that attend a private school in another county, but there certainly are more there, so that number would be higher. And then there are 350 registered home schools in Beaufort County. Now, that may not mean that every one of those home schools currently has a student, but there are 350 registered, and it also doesn't mean that every one has 1 student. Some could have multiples there. If you do a conservative figure, you're looking somewhere around 1,100 students that are being served in other ways other than the Beaufort County schools, and that's something that we want to keep an eye on in terms of, is there something we're not doing that we need to do better? Is there an area of concern that we need to look at, making sure that we address? There's also some enrollment projections that we get from the Department of Public Instruction I want to share with you in meetings to come that give us an idea of where we're at in a 10-year window looking ahead. I can tell you the numbers from the Partnership for Children that's dealing primarily with young children. The number of births to families in Beaufort County is gone down significantly. So there are fewer students in the pipeline to be students of ours. So I think you're going to see a decline. But then when you have other options for parents to have their children do things other than the regular public schools, it has a major impact on us. And while we don't look at each student with a dollar sign, we're losing funding when our students leave, and we want to know what we can do to keep as many in as possible. So I just want to give you that as a update, and then the next agenda item is in some ways related to that.
I have a question that you probably don't have the answer now, but as we're looking at these projections, I'd like to know, do we see a pattern of when we lose students? In other words, are we getting them enrolled, but by 3rd grade, we're losing them? In other words, when you go from Bath and 8th grade at Northside, that 8th grade class, is that who ends up being in the 9th grade at Northside? Likewise, are the 8th graders at P.S. Jones, does that equal the size of the 9th grade class at Washington High School? Or does the 1st grade class at Eastern, equal the 2nd grade class the following year at John Cotton Taylor? Is there some bleeding happening somewhere in a gap that we need to address? Is there a way to find that out?
We can look at, we have month by month and year by year.
Does it make sense what I just asked?
It does, yes. And that's what I want. The next agenda item would look into some of those things throughout the school year, but then from a subsequent school year to the next as well, just to be able to see where that pattern is, if there is a pattern.
Yeah, and there might not be one. It
Right.
could simply be, like you say, there's not as many kids in the pipeline to get enrolled in kindergarten all across the county, but if there is some bleeding going on in one area, maybe we need to address that
Yeah.
there.
Okay, anything else? If not, class size.
And when I asked Lisa to put this on the agenda, I guess it's really not a class size committee. What I want to ask the chairman to consider and ask for you all to think about would be for us to put together a committee that would look at long-term planning for enrollment and facilities. And part of that would get into some of the conversations that have been had, probably more outside of this body with people in the community than certainly have happened here. But as we look at long-term enrollment management, and the conversation about redistricting comes up, and there have been conversations about buildings and construction, we've not had any of those conversations as a board, and I think we need to look at what DPI is projecting our enrollments are going to be 10 years out as we make some long-term plans. One of the pieces that's going to play into this is the class size reduction and the issues that we're going to have next year where we're having to find space for 10 additional teachers at kindergarten through third grade, and what we do in terms of our facilities and the modulars that we have in place and all of that. I don't know who would be on the committee, but I've had a couple of commissioners that have asked if we would look at something like that and include them so that they're at least aware along the way of what we've got going on. Not asking for action to be taken, but just to have the conversations about the things that need to be on our radar and to be very open about it.
I mean, so are you going to speak to them about who they would want on it? And
I guess
we want
I could ask the county manager, but if you would allow me to move forward with that, we'll start putting that together.
Anybody have any issues with that? I don't.
Okay.
Okay. I don't see any problem with that. Let's discuss a grant for Snowden.
This is the GlaxoSmithKline grant that Snowden has had for a few years. Last year, there was some concern that the SPLASH program may run out of money based on the previous year's expenditures, but they actually came in working on a very tight budget and carried $20,000 over. And I reached out to the funder and asked them if we could carry that $20,000 over to do the continuous summer project, because we weren't supposed to be able to have one this year in the summer of 2018, and they have said that they would like for us to use the funds that were not spent and spend those for a summer program. So we're going to look at anything that we could have saved in the current year and try to put together another summer program, which we didn't think we'd be able to do. It may not be the entire length. We're going to kind of get an idea of what we've got to spend, and then we'll work on a budget in terms of the kinds of services we can provide and how long they'll be. But that money is already here. Just wanted you all to be aware of it, that we got permission, asked for permission, we're granted permission to carry it over. So that'll be another service we can provide down in Aurora that we didn't think we'd be able to this summer.
Okay. Any questions? Guess not. We're moving right along. Okay. Entertain a motion to go to closed session.
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under General Statute 115C-321.
Second.
Okay. A motion is second to go in closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that? Okay. We're in closed session. Okay, we're back in open session, and the first item is to approve the personnel agenda that was just discussed.
So moved. Oh, second.
Okay, I hear a motion. I hear a motion, a second, and a third. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Snowden land use agreement, Mark Donald.
Yes, sir. As you may remember, last year, the Board of Education and the town of Aurora signed a one-year joint use agreement for all surrounding land around Snowden. That joint use agreement ends December 31st. So Dr. Phipps and I contacted the town and started discussion about extending, if they would be interested in extending the joint use agreement, of course, saying that we would need to come to you and see if you're interested in extending it, and represented the town throughout the possibility of doing a 10-year joint use agreement where we would continue to pay to mow the fields and get the upkeep, and it would essentially be the same agreement you signed last year, but just with a longer contract length. Okay. So she was going to present that to the town tonight, and I said that I would present to you this idea, and then we would kind of go from there. But so I guess the action item would be, are you interested in the joint use agreement? And if so, are you interested in a 10-year joint use agreement or some other year number?
So you just want a motion to direct you to go check out a 10-year agreement?
Yes, sir. That's what I would like.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I hear a motion a second, and I'm assuming 10-year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not costing us anything, right?
Other than the mowing wheel, that's it.
Yeah,
which we should
exactly.
Thank you.
I see why we wouldn't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we utilize it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I guess you can go do that.
All right.
Now we're gonna go to that 6.3 that was added. It might not show on your screen right now, but that was to approve the 3 capital South Side at 7,500 project, HVAC at 5817, and another HVA at 6539. And I heard them say that we had the funds to cover that.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, good enough. Calendar, and Don, I think you usually
Yeah,
tell
if you
us what
take a
you
look at
want to know
that,
about calendar.
couple questions we have. Number one, the 21st, I just want to highlight, that's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, just so you kind of know where that's at on the calendar. The 12th of December, we've always tried to do just a single meeting, and we follow that meeting up with the dinner that we have over in transportation. We normally do that meeting early. I went back and looked, and last year we met at 4 o'clock. That allows us to do the meeting and then have the meal and get out at a reasonable time. And just wanted to see if you'd be able to entertain doing something earlier than 5:30. Doesn't have to be 4, but whatever.
What night is that on?
That's on a Tuesday night.
Tuesday, December 12th.
Carolyn's got her store.
How about you guys that are coming from work in
Okay.
Greenville too?
I'll be good with it.
Well, what would be the earliest you'd want to come?
4:30, whatever.
How about you though, Terry?
What are we proposing, 4 o'clock?
That's what we did last year. I'm just asking if you want to look at that, 4:30 or whatever.
We just take a quick meeting and then go over here. and-
Right, I know, I was here,
That's
that was my first.
That was right.
In the same sense.
That's right. I'm fine with 4 if that's what everybody wants
It's
to
fine with
do.
me. How about you, Carolyn?
I'll make it work somehow.
Okay, say 4 o'clock then, Don?
Okay.
If we need it later, that's,
No,
yeah.
Krause, I'll make it work if I have to close the
Okay.
store.
So December 12th at 4 o'clock.
That'll be the only
Got it.
December meeting that we
That's
have.
the only one, and we already got set
That's right.
for the 21st. Are we still doing the 21st at 5:30?
Mhm.
Board member updates?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have a minute, please, sir.
Sure, go right on.
As some of you know, last Thursday, we had was it our 5th, Mr.?
I think 6.
6th, okay, time flies when you're having fun. 6th Ag Expo. It was probably our biggest one yet. This event cannot happen without a lot of help,
Yeah, I
okay?
can feel that.
So I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards. I got my list of people I'd like to thank at this time. And if I leave anybody else, I thank you anyway. All right.
the problem
First
with
off,
this.
I want to thank the superintendent for his guidance and helping getting all of this put together. Also, a big help goes to Steve Griffin. It was his brainchild from the get-go. Lisa Duke, for all the times I called and aggravated her, I do appreciate her patience. Willie Matt Carrollin, he was the man that handled all the money, and he's kept us straight with the money. And so, Wendy Petaway, she helped us contact all the other counties that were involved, which we had about 14 involved this year, in contacting the CTE folks and those counties. Also, we had help from the school in Janesville, Nursba. I'd like to thank Sarah Stalls, former employee here. She came in and helped us out a whole lot. We had a student representative, Noah Ayers. He came up with, what was that thing he came up with?
It was a Snapchat filter that they use.
And I understand it was a hit. I don't know anything what he was doing, but, you know, he was tickled with it. That's all that matters. Dr. Stanley over there, she was a big hit that day, and so I appreciate all her assistance as well. We had a teacher rep that was also on our committee, Eric Godwin. He gave us a lot of input and so forth. I also like to thank our associate superintendent, Mr. Doan. Carolyn, you've been proud. He actually worked that day. He had to go to another county to work, but he actually worked that day. He did a fine job on
I
site.
try once a year, man, once a year.
Yeah, it does. The central office staff here, they were all champs, and we couldn't have done it without all them. Stan Hudson and his staff, wonderful job. They were there. They worked till the very end. I'd like to also thank all our sponsors as far as this TV coverage will go. Thank you. And also to Beaufort County Farm Bureau, because they were a key from the very get-go, and here it is 6 years later, and we're still going. So we're the only region in the whole state doing anything like this. So we got a lot to be proud of, and we're going to be having a debriefing meeting. We had a few issues this year. some that popped up that we hadn't had in the past, but it's nothing that we can't work around. And so, Mr. Chair and board members, we got a lot of good people that work here in Beaufort County with the school system, and they went beyond the call of duty again, and I'd just like to say publicly thank you.
It's
Thank
a
you
really
too,
good
Matt.
event.
Thank you for
I didn't do
that.
a thing, I just like.
You left off yourself.
No.
You did a good job carrying that radio around.
Still didn't know how it worked, but I carried it around anyway.
I just say Butch, he didn't know what it was for, but he carried it around.
Problem is, the volume was so low, I couldn't hear it.
It was a good show, Mac.
It was.
It's a great show.
That's a nice event, it really is. Any other comments? Okay, then superintendent update. Oh, I'm sorry.
You can mention
Go
this.
ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Thursday night this week, there's going to be a circus at Northeast Elementary put on by the kindergartners. It starts at 6:30, and it's a fundraiser for their kindergarten and elementary school programs. But admission's $4, and I'm going to be the ringleader. So I was inviting you to come see me in action. I'm excited about it. Miss Sherman asked me if I could come help them out, so if y'all get a chance to come down there Thursday night, come on down and see the show. I don't think there's gonna be live animals there, but
Oh, come on. Mac had live animals over there. Yes, okay. Superintendent update.
Yeah, following up on what Max said, we had about 1,350 students that went through the Ag Expo, and as he said, 14 school districts. It was a big event. I want to mention that next week is American Education Week, and we will be featuring each school's Teacher of the Year on the school web pages. We encourage the public to visit the Beaufort County Schools webpage to find the links or to go directly to the school web pages to see that. We'll also be recognizing certified and classified employees during Teacher Appreciation. That occurs in the spring. Friday, as you know, is November the 10th. It's a holiday for students and staff in our school district and across the state. It's Veterans Day, and I just wanted to personally say that we are so thankful to those who have served in the military to allow us to enjoy the freedom and the lifestyle that we have. So while we have a day off and it's a vacation time for us, we just want to say thank you to the veterans. And then finally, Ms. Eltha Booth, one of our very own, has been named to the 2017-18 All-State Board. In fact, Mr. Williams had that honor last year. Ms. Booth she'll be recognized at a ceremony at the North Carolina School Board Association's annual conference next Tuesday, November the 14th in Greensboro, and several of us will be in attendance and see her receive that recognition. So we're proud of you, Ms. Booth.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
You got a dynasty going. Dynasty.
Is that it?
That's all I have.
Ms.
I
P?
make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Got a motion second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Over. Done. Thank you.
5:57.